What's going on, SMAA and entrepreneurs online? We're going to teach you today how to scale your business, company, online, offline, brick and mortar, whatever it is. We're going to teach you how to scale it. But in order to scale something, really, just to do anything in business, to do anything in life, I don't know whether you are an employee, I don't know whether you're a business owner, I don't know whether you're a striving business owner or just existing. I mean, you still got to have, a appropriate mindset. And I brought Dan on here to actually tell you guys how he pretty much just can set you guys up, and how he can give you tactics, practical step-by-step things where you can get your mindset straight. He has, I mean, this guy is an author. I mean, well, let me, I guess, kind of explain to you guys how I got in touch with him. I was actually in a mastermind with Rob Quinn, and there was another guy in there. His name is Dean Bithell. You can look him up. He's online. He's in his group. The name of his group actually eludes me, but he's on my friend request. You need to look him up. He's doing some big things. He is, a big business owner. So you can look him up, and we were in the mastermind together, and I actually saw him on an interview with Dan, and I was like, hold on, man, I got to, interview this guy, even though it took me a while to reach out to him. But I got him. He's on here now, and I think it took maybe about, I don't know, maybe because I asked him probably about 8 months ago. Now, I'm just kidding. It's probably about at least 2 or 3 months ago. I asked him, but he's a busy schedule. So I thank him for, hopping on. I mean, he's an author, he's a speaker, and he just told me he has well, actually, I looked it up last night on his page, and he has a podcast that is, it's called Method Meets Magic. And he has, I think it's another program. He's actually selling courses and everything like that. I think that one was Journey to Intentions. You can help me out here if you want. Intentions, I know I might mess it up, but I'll let him go ahead and get on here and, tell us about it. And we were kind of talking in, I guess, the back room before the interview and everything like that. And he was just talking about, creating new outcomes. He can show you actually how to create new outcomes, or whatever outcome you want. He has, I guess, tactics, procedures, methods, and everything that will actually help you create a new outcome. Just like I just did a live, kind of based off of the interview him and Dee had, their last interview, and just talking about choices and everything. I know everybody makes a choice. I'm making a choice right now. Well, whenever you speak, whenever you talk, whatever you do, whether I move my hands or whatever, these are all choices. And every choice leads to, another situation and leads to something. But actually, I'm going to open up the floor to Dan. And I want him to just explain his story, how he got started, how he grew, how he scaled. And actually, just to let you know, it might throw you off a little bit because it kind of threw me off. But he has, a British accent. I found out he's from London, but he says he don't want to go back to London. So I don't know if he wants to touch on that or not, because everybody's trying to go to London. I've never been to London. My wife has been. In the area, in the Europe and everything, but I've never been. So everybody's trying to get there, but actually he was telling me a story how he was trying to get out of there. So I don't know if you want to touch on that or what, but go ahead and have the floor. Let everybody know who you are and, what you do now. Appreciate it. Thanks for coming.
Well, Mike, thank you so much for having me on the show. It's a great pleasure to be your guest. Obviously, I've been watching a few of your lives again by way of our connection with Dean over the past few months and so on. So it's really an honor to have the opportunity to speak to you and also speak to your audience. So thank you very much for this opportunity. Yes, I have a radio show, an international radio show called Method Meets Magic with my co-host Jess. That's every Monday at 1 p.m. It's called Method Meets Magic. And the balance that we bring in Method Meets Magic speaks very much to how my work works and my outlook on life. And really, when you think about it, how reality really plays. When you look at yin and yang, you look at masculine, feminine, you look at light and dark, all of these different polarities, often the beauty is found in them balancing out. And that's one of the things that I'm definitely going to speak to today when we're getting into more of the mindset piece. So my co-host, Jess, is an intuitive medium and psychic. I'm very much on the practical mindset work. And I've done a lot of work with Jess. So now I'm coming to the middle. She's been doing work with me, so she's come to the middle. And Method Meets Magic is that place where, I mean, we know people that do nothing but read. They read, but they don't actually get any results. We know people that work and don't do any reading, or people that meditate for 20 hours a day, or they spend all their time in monasteries and temples. But it's bringing all of those things together and finding the space in the middle that we found has really been the place where results actually show up. And what I really talk to a lot of the time, this whole idea that everything that we experience, whether consciously or subconsciously, comes down to a series of choices that we've made that then unfold for us as experiences that we have. And so my work very much is about empowering people to stop making the choices which disempower them, or that are bad choices, for want of a better phrase, because there's nothing really good or bad, it's all neutral and relative, and to make more of the empowering choices, or good choices, or more to the point, the choices that lead us to the outcomes that we want, and to stop making those choices that pull us away from the outcomes that we don't want to make. I do that predominantly through my tool called Beyond Intention, which is Journey Beyond Intention was the name of one of our programs. I've taken on a COO now, and we've kind of renamed stuff. I've actually just reminded me I've got to make sure that the Facebook page is updated. But what Beyond Intention does really is it says, number one, everything that's shown up for me, I own responsibility for having created it. Now, the danger with that for some people is that when they start owning responsibility for what they've created, they start having guilt and shame around some parts of that experience. So, for example, if there's something that happened that they're not happy about or that they wish hadn't happened, rather than seeing the beauty behind that, which is, hang on a minute, I created something. So if I take that power consciously, I can create more things. We can sometimes get into a rut where we say, oh my God, look what I've done. I didn't do that. I did that instead, and blah, 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 and fall into these loops and these patterns, these disempowering loops and patterns. So what I really like to empower people to do is to take the beauty of everything they've created, no matter how ugly it might look on the outside, and reframe that to say, okay, if I've done that now, if I step consciously into that role as the author and creator of my life, I can start directing my creative power to a successful business, loving relationships, better health, more abundance, more fun, more play, happy family, and so on and so forth. And that's really what it is my joy to be of service doing, empowering people to create whatever outcomes they want to see in their life, and knowing what those outcomes should really be.
Yeah, that's good. I know you mentioned, I guess, somewhat as far as I guess you said there's really no such thing as a bad choice.
Yeah.
So I mean, how can you tell somebody that, where actually, I guess I'm thinking of family members there where, they have to actually, constantly pull somebody out. Like, if somebody gets, addicted to drugs, or if they're, a bad gambler, maybe an alcoholic, or they're just reckless with their money or something like that. So how does it, when a family member looking at another person, it's like, well, obviously that's a bad choice because, I'm the one going in, getting them out, because you're affecting me, you're affecting my life, even though I guess, kind of, one decision or one choice in any family member, or even in any friend, is going to, allow or make somebody else make another choice.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you're going to have to choose, either way. So, I mean, on the outside, I guess looking in is like, this is a bad choice, because obviously the person that's doing it, they're like, well, this is a good choice for me because I think, it's good, but I guess in the moment they think it's good, but then, there might be, the consequences, so how can you explain that to, one person that's like, well, that has to be a bad choice?
One thing I like to do is I like to go to nature, and it's going to feel like I'm segueing, but work with me. The reason why I like to go to nature is because nature, when unimpeded, is just the way that things normally go, right? When we don't interfere with nature, that's just what's happening. Right? In nature, let's look at childbirth, for example. In childbirth, there's pain. I was there when my nephew was born. I heard the screams. I had a newfound respect for any woman that's given birth, by the way. Any woman watching this that's given birth to a child, I salute you. I've heard what you guys go through. Now, if I say about pain to you, you consider that to be a bad thing, no? But pain in childbirth is just a signal that something new is being brought into the world. The pain is a signal that something new's coming forth. When you have a headache, we consider a headache to be a bad thing, but actually a headache is just notification that something's wrong, and it's the body telling you, hey, look here, pay some attention, this needs to be fixed. Whether it's you're dehydrated, whether it's you're tired, or whether there's something wrong in your brain that needs to be fixed, that there's a health issue. So even when we look at something as rudimentarily straightforward as pain, there's always a relative way to look at it. Our story around it is actually what is good or bad, not the thing in of itself. I practice something called Kundalini Yoga. And in Kundalini Yoga, one of the principles we're taught is the idea of the neutral mind. And what the neutral mind is a space mentally whereby you can look dispassionately at what's happening around you, not disassociated emotionally, but dispassionately, you can see it for what it is. And when you actually start to move through life, seeing things for what they are, it puts you in a much better position to make more empowering decisions, because you're making positions from a statement of fact as opposed to a statement of emotion or connectivity to our opinions or stories about what's really going on. Bringing this back now to the whole idea of choices. Everything in life has a winner or a loser, to keep it really rudimentary. I don't really believe in winners and losers so much, but just to keep it really straightforward, right? There are people that are empowered by choice and there are people that are disempowered by choice. Even when you look at, you used the example of, I believe you used the example of someone gambling or whatever, or being frivolous with their money. On the other side of that transaction, there's someone that benefited. So from their perspective, the situation was beneficial, even though from your perspective, as a loving family member, looking at, for example, a family member using their money at a casino, for example, that money that went into the casino paid somebody's wages, added more value to the economy. Even though it took away from your family member, it added in another way. So depending on which side we're looking at the coin, it's empowering or disempowering, good or bad. Neutral is that your family member went to the casino. The story is your family went to the casino and is addicted to being at the casino. The story is someone's come to my casino, has given me money. The story is we've got patrons in the casino, so I've got a job and I can feed my family. Every single situation, generally speaking, and I've not seen every single situation in the world, so I can't speak on every single situation in the world as a blanket, but as a general principle, there is an upside and a downside to one or another party. In the middle, the neutral position is there is just something that happened. And so when I'm working with clients, whether it's through group coaching or one-on-one coaching or even someone going through my programs, I always encourage them to learn to get to a place of seeing things for what they are without the story, so that we can make effective choices to get us to an outcome unimpeded by our stories around the situation itself.
Wow, that's a that's a very deep, deep answer. And just as far as I'm gonna kind of try to play this, back towards business owners and stuff, because obviously when you're first starting your business, it's like, well, you really don't know what decision to make. I mean, it's like, well, somebody told me to do this, somebody told me to do that. So, I mean, it's kind of interesting how you say, even though, just if you make one decision, like, you go out and you're like, well, maybe I shouldn't have spent so much money, right here. But the situation is, because you spent so much money right there, somebody benefited from that result, even though you might have, it might have affected you in a negative way, but somebody somewhere benefited from that result, even though it might have affected you. And then even if it hurt, if it was something positive for your company, help your company grow, it seems like, somebody else, like, a takeaway, it might have taken away from somebody. So, I mean, it kind of like, it's the yin and the yang. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, is that, experience? Because I heard you and Dean talk about, just the universal laws and, talking about how, nobody can elude the laws of the universe, where, if there's a particular law in the universe, nobody can elude it. I mean, everybody talks, a lot about, what is it, what am I thinking about? Where you can just pretty much, the law of attraction. So, so everybody talks about the law of attraction, but some people say the law of attraction doesn't work for me because I'm constantly sitting here.
Let's address that one. First and foremost, the law of attraction is a popcorn version of something called the law of vibration, which is a universal law. Now, universal laws are laws that are pretty much encoded in the universe. Now, universal laws can be bent and broken sometimes. Just like the law of gravity is broken, we fly in airplanes. We're not supposed to be able to fly in airplanes because it's the law of gravity, but we bend the law of gravity and break it in order to fly in airplanes, right? Birds break the law of gravity because they fly, okay? Now, the law of vibration, which is the true thing, is a scientifically demonstrated fact. And that is that when two things vibrate at the same frequency, they can resonate with each other, and they can be experienced in the same space. What that means in more easy to understand terms is you can only experience something that you're a vibrational match for. Now, when I say the word vibrational match, I know sometimes people are going to get caught into, oh, this is some of that woo-woo, fluffy, new age, nonsense or whatever. But I'm not talking about in terms of fluffy, new age nonsense. I'm talking in terms of a measurable frequency, as in there are devices that can literally measure the frequency that you're at as a vibration. It's not my opinion. It's not someone's idea. This is something that's been demonstrated and can be measured with scientific instruments, that when we're at different moods, when we have different feelings, when we have different thoughts, we literally emit a different vibrational frequency. Now, every single thing in reality has a vibrational frequency. When two things are at the same vibrational frequency and resonate, they can be experienced together. Or in other words, my environment is a reflection of the things that I am a vibrational match to. The people, the places, and the things that I witness in my environment, in my reality, in my everyday experience, are those things that I match with as a frequency. It's just like when two people are in love, and then all of a sudden, it's not really working out anymore. What's actually happened is that they're no longer at the same frequency. It's just like when we talk about outgrowing our friends, right? We're no longer at the same frequency. And so therefore you can force things together. You can bend the law and force things together. But generally that's when you have the friction of pain, the friction of discomfort, the friction of imbalanced relationship. It's just like when you get like a new job and you're in the feeling of it, you're vibing with it and everything's good. And feelings are something that we feel. I'm not using foreign concept. We feel these things. And when we're in that state, and then all of a sudden, maybe the job doesn't feel so good, your boss is an asshole, there's a really annoying person. And these experiences shift our frequency, they shift how we feel. And as they shift how we feel, we no longer feel at a match or frequency to that experience, and we no longer want to be there. The same way that sometimes friends fall away, sometimes things disappear, sometimes things just don't work. And they're not working, or they're falling away, or they're disappearing because you're no longer a vibrational frequency match for that thing. So what the law of vibration or the law of attraction really is it says, when I match something as a frequency, it comes to me. That's what it says. That's scientifically demonstrated fact. What's happened is that people have forgotten that there's more pieces to the puzzle than just that. Because another fact is that what I don't believe I can experience truly in my subconscious, I can't have. That's why mindset's a very important piece of the puzzle. So I can feel it, right? I can truly feel this. But if I don't believe I'm worthy of it, or I don't believe I deserve it, or I don't believe it's possible for me to have something, I'm not going to be able to witness it. I'm not going to be able to experience it. So that creates resistance, a block. So what will happen is that some people will be like, do you know what? I've got my vision board and it's my perfect boyfriend or my perfect girlfriend or husband or wife, and they've taken a cut out of J-Lo's backside, or like, who's I don't know, who's someone that all the women like these days? Who do women like? I don't know.
What's his name? Zac Efron. I heard somebody talking
Zac
about
Efron's face and like The Rock's shoulders, and they've cut this perfect. Now if they don't believe that they're worthy of it, or they don't think it's possible for that thing to happen, it doesn't matter how much they feel at a vibrational match to it, their mindset, their beliefs are going to create resistance. It's going to block it showing up. And then the third piece is, even if they feel it and their mindset accepts it, if they're sitting at home all day, locked in their cupboard, not going out and meeting people, how the hell are they going to have that experience? So what I talk about in my work, and we actually just wrapped up a 9-week series on this on our radio show, and I'll share with you the link to the archives in case it's something that's of interest to people to have a listen into. But is that the three things must be aligned. My frequency or my energy, my feelings, right? That's number one. Number two, my mindset and my beliefs, where my head is at, right? What I believe is possible must be aligned with that. And then I must be ready to take action. I must be ready to curate my environment. I must be ready to make choices to stay in alignment physically, mentally, and emotionally. Body, mind, and spirit. These three things, these three partners coming together in alignment is what gives me my outcomes. So people that are having challenges using universal laws like the law of vibration, like the law of least effort and all these other things, should remember that these are part of a holistic experience that we have as human beings. We're not just mental beings. We can't just read all day and expect results. We're not just spiritual or energy beings. I can't spend every day in church, my mosque or my temple, or in my meditation room and expect things to change. I can't just be doing, and expect to feel whole and fulfilled. I must bring all of them together in a balanced way. And when I do that, then I'll get results.
That's good. That's good. And I guess I had a question when you were going over all that. Actually, I had several questions. But as far as the frequency, I know my wife says, indeed, she says, number one, frequency. Number two, mindset. Number three, ready to take action equals outcome.
Yeah.
And she says, yes, she says, when I match something as a frequency, it comes to me.
There you go.
So, and you know, as far as I guess just frequency and everything, is frequency the same as energy? Is that the same type?
Frequency, energy operates at different frequencies. First and foremost, let's dispel this myth about energy, right? First and foremost, if you take anything physical, my pen lid, right? If I was to rip this down to its smallest particle, I'd get, electrons, basically. Like to rip apart the atom, the compounds, the atoms, those electrons. If I open that up, it's 99.999% energy. So if the smallest physical thing is 99.999% energy, that means that this thing as a whole is 99.999% energy, which means everything that's in reality is predominantly energy. What science has demonstrated for us is that actually energy takes form in our experience based on having someone looking at it. Now, I'm not a scientist, and I actually had a really, really great conversation with a woman that's in one of my masterminds right now who's got a degree in physics, and she broke down a lot of this for me, and I'm really kind of getting my head wrapped around it so that I can speak about it more competently. One thing I'll never do is speak on something that I can't speak on. But at its simplest idea, energy doesn't do anything unless it's given a command. At its simplest idea, that's a scientist looking at this might say, no, I'm wrong or whatever, but I'm just making this really, really simple. There's more science to it. There's experiments and all these papers and stuff that people have written, but at its simplest ideal, energy doesn't do anything unless it's given a command. And that command is our expectation about what we're going to see. So energy is the thing that everything's made of. And everything that's made of, this energy that everything's made of operates at different frequencies, different measurable frequencies. Even you look at like a radio's got different frequencies that you tune into, right? And when you go to a different station, you pull in a different signal, a different song. Maybe there's a talk show, maybe there's a sketch going on, but you get that by tuning the radio dial, or even changing the TV channel. You pick up a different signal coming in. All of those signals are there already, but based on where you tune yourself into, whether it's the radio, whether it's the TV, you pick up a different signal. So the energy is the thing that's there already. The dial is giving us the frequency, which is what part of that experience, what part of that energy that we're tuning into. So perhaps what your wife is saying is that when she dials into something, she gets that message, she gets that radio signal, she gets that TV channel, she gets that TV show. And that's what we do with our lives. Based on how we feel, we tune into a specific dial, and then we get a different experience.
That's good. That's good. And I know you were talking about energy. I mean, I got a little bit of a science background. I got a degree in biology. So,
Okay.
You talk about, energy as far as you said, energy just pretty much exists. I mean, I guess that's one of the laws, where it talks about energy can neither be created nor destroyed.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
Therefore, pretty much, just like you were saying, I mean, you're saying it's pretty much the energy, in that one little, I guess, your pin cap or whatever, you're saying it's 99.9%. So it's energy. Everything already has energy. So you really can't create it, nor you destroy it. It's just there. It's just energy. So, and then you talked about the frequency and everything like that. And I got, pretty much, I got a statement that pretty much says, always be moving. Because, I mean, you got energy, but energy just exists. So therefore, you got to move. I mean, you got to move it. Because, I mean, if not, I mean, what is it? There's also another law that says, something is just going to exist unless it's, pretty much acted upon by an equal or an opposite force. So therefore, you got to, push it, get it, pretty much to move. So, I mean, that's pretty deep, as far as, how we're going. But my situation now is, because I'm a business owner, I'm coming in, it's like, man, what in the world are these guys talking about? I thought this was supposed to be a business group, man. Why are they talking about science stuff? But I'm trying to, a way that I want people to understand that, that you can use these principles and these laws in your business, because, pretty much if you're an existing human being, then obviously you're living in these laws. So therefore, it's really not about your business. It's about you personally as an individual, and, just as an existing being here on the earth, that you have to abide by these laws, or either you abide by them, or, they'll abide by you, because the laws are going to exist either way. Either you tap into them or you don't. So, I mean, that was kind of what he's saying, either, you apply to the laws, either you're the energy that's just out there existing, or the radio station, or the radio waves that are out there existing, or either, somebody dials in, or either you dial into something else. That's kind of what I was saying, on my other live, as far as, my wife saying this is her kind of interview. She loves all this stuff. Actually, she was the one actually kind of telling me about this, stuff actually before we even started talking about it years ago. And I was like, what are you talking about? Because, I mean, we kind of, some of this stuff's in the Bible, but people really don't talk about it in the Bible, and not necessarily just in the Bible, but other spiritual books as well. Because if you look at, any type of, spiritual book, you can kind of see, I guess, the parallelism from one religion to the next religion in the same books. I know we're talking about books and all that stuff. So, I mean, it's pretty much, it's like a constant wavelength. Now, whether you believe that or not, whether, you're Muslim, you're Jewish, you're Hindu, you're Christian, whatever, you can go look at each individual book and see that there's actually specific stuff in each book. I mean, it's all throughout the book. So, I mean, these laws do not just exist for, one particular religion. And I know a lot of people are going to get mad about me saying this, and I'm not trying to talk you out of your religion. Whatever your religion you are, that's what you are. I'm not trying to say it's right or wrong, but I'm just saying it is a clear fact and a clear statement that some of this stuff, I mean, pretty much most of this stuff is periodically, sporadically in each individual religious book in each one of these things. So I think, there's a lot to play off of here. But, I mean, how specifically, my question right now is, and somebody else that might be looking in, somebody just said, like, oh, what's going on, Jatari? How you doing? My question now is, how can I take, because a lot of people don't talk like this. A lot of people don't think like this. A lot of people just pretty much exist, just like energy. So how do you get people to see, how do you get entrepreneurs to see that, if you actually tapped into this stuff, started studying this stuff, started learning this stuff, started trying to apply, some of these laws to your life, understand some of these laws, figure out how you can get these laws to work in your life. I mean, how do you get people to see that? And then, that was one question. How do you get people to see that? I mean, how do you elevate people to your mindset? Because, I mean, I'm actually going to ask you about 3 questions here. I know my wife said, actually, when you're interviewing people, only ask them 1 question. But sometimes I just have to, so, I mean,
let's tackle them one at a time. The first thing is this. I mean, like I said to you, I'm doing more work now with entrepreneurs and high performers. I've got a mastermind in June. I think we've got like 4 seats left. My masterminds are really intimate. There's only like 10 people that come to them. Got a mastermind in California, in Venice, in June. But there's a live stream available, and I'll get the information over to you in case anyone's interested or whatever. But what we're doing there is we're working on something that I've created called purpose-driven peak performance. And what purpose-driven peak performance does is it brings in this idea that I said at the beginning about things needing to be balanced. Okay. The story was this. So around Christmas, New Year's, I was invited to potentially speak for a very intimate group of super overachievers. I'm talking about multimillionaires. They're part of a group where you need a minimum of 10 million to be in this networking group. That's the minimum entry. Right. Yeah. And one of the guys who, he's a friend of mine now. We met at a dinner. That's not part of the story. It's not that important. But I was talking, he said, oh, Dan, it'd be great for you to come and speak to my people, blah, blah, blah. And then he said, what are you going to talk about? And I said, I'm going to talk about using the power of choice in order to direct your life and create outcomes and blah, 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 which is what I do. And he said, Dan, we're all overachievers. We don't need that. Now, I was a little heartbroken, obviously, because like my work gets results. I mean, anyone that cares to look at my Facebook page and see the testimonials I've got there, or check out my website, which is dreamwithdan.com, and see the testimonials on there. And see what people say. Like sometimes people just have a single session with me. People that have done like my 12-week or my 8-week coaching, they have completely new lives at the end of it, specifically lives that they're actually happy with. But here's this guy saying that he doesn't need it. And it struck me, actually, what was missing was that I hadn't demonstrated to him, because I didn't have my value proposition correct to that type of person, that although you may have financial success and material success, there's more to the puzzle than that. Now, in my work, working with, I've done a lot of work with people in transition. That's one of the spaces that my tool's been really, really powerful. People moving into new ways of living, whether it's moving from having a career to entrepreneurship to a career, divorces, new physical areas, retiring or whatever, stepping into a space whereby my life's going to be doing something different. What do I want it to look like? And how can I get there? That's what I really, really specialize in. And it's having people come to me that have spent 20 years building up a life, right? Thinking that they've done everything. The kids have gone to college or whatever. They've built this great successful career. They've got a beautiful wife or husband. They've got the white picket fence, the holiday home, the 3 cars, the boat, whatever, private jet. And then realizing they feel empty at the end of the day. Because a lot of the time, the things that we strive for isn't necessarily what we want. It's what other people, places, and things have told us that we want. So a big part of my work with entrepreneurs is, first of all, do you actually want to be an entrepreneur? Or are you buying into something that other people, places, and things have told you that you should be doing? Now, this is something that people often find very, very difficult to digest. And I've spoken for a leadership forum a couple of times. And that's one of the things I've said. Are you necessarily an entrepreneur? Are you necessarily a leader? And if so, do you want to do that? Or is it because someone else has told you that you want to do it? People need to recognize that we spend 95% of our days operating on our subconscious programs. Only 5% of our choices in daily life are spent consciously operating. And even of that 95%, only 70% of that program that we run on, we actually decided. We haven't decided. So only 30% we've decided. So 70% of the program that we're running on, 95% of the time, we had no input on. It was fed to us. And so what I encourage people to do is to step into really owning what's going on internally and choosing if that's what I want to experience. Now, when I've decided that, and I can step up to my entrepreneurial experience and say, do you know what? I choose to be here. I own it. Now I've got a level of leverage over myself to be more effective, to be more of service, and to be more successful, because I can bring in more of myself into that experience of being an entrepreneur. Those little doubts can be shedded because I've addressed it. No, I want to be here. When things get tough, I can stand tall and say, I've chosen to be here, and I can bring all of myself to the table to be here. When things get challenging, or when people in our lives don't believe in us and we need to depend completely on ourselves, if we brought all of ourselves into that experience, guess what? We can be more effective in that role. We can be more effective in that position. We can be more effective in that journey. And so when I'm working with entrepreneurs, what I'm predominantly doing is, number one, getting them to own their journey. Not mum and dad wanting me to be successful, not I want to be more successful than the person down the road, not because I'm trying to prove my teacher wrong, or I'm trying to prove my parents wrong, or my family, my friends wrong. No, from a holistic, mindful, heart-centered place, owning their role as an entrepreneur. From that position, now we say, okay, how do I want to feel? Not how much money do I want to make, how do I want to feel? Because actually, when you think about it, we don't buy a car because we want the car. We don't buy a house because we want the house. We get it because there's a payoff on the other side of it. I don't want a holiday home because I want a holiday home. I want a holiday home because I like the feeling of being in the sun, or for some people, I want people to know that I can afford a holiday home. Let's be honest, right? I want people to see that I'm the man or I'm the woman. That's what we want. I'm the boss lady, or I'm the boss dude, or whatever. So what I get them to do is I say, okay, let's identify the feelings that we want at the end of the day, so that we can plot a more efficient, less painful, more flowing, natural route to getting there. Because sometimes the feeling that we're chasing doesn't require a $20 million business and spending 20 hours a day working. Actually, what we want could be effective maybe by just having a hobby for an hour a week. Now, if I'm chasing a target because it's what I want for its own sake, I could be more effective in getting there rather than me working 20 hours a day, running around on a hamster wheel to get to this thing that actually when I get there, I'm not going to be happy anyway. What about if I was happy already and actually I'm just engaging in entrepreneurial activities that add to my joy, and therefore I'm coming with more of a happy self and I'm able to be more of service. Now, if I'm more of service and I'm bringing a frequency, right, that matches more happiness, more joy and being of service, it's going to make it more flowing and easier for me to start attracting the right clients into my work. When I'm getting on the call to close someone, I'm not closing them out of desperation or stress. I'm closing them from a position of grace, ease, comfort, chill, and from service that's completely detached from the outcome. And therefore, I'm more effective and efficient in actually doing that. When I'm doing that from a mindful place, actually, I'm not getting on this call to close someone. I'm getting on the call because I'm happy, I'm in a good place, and I want them to be a part of this experience too, through the service I'm going to give to them. People resonate with that. And when resonating with it, they're attracted to it. I'll be honest with you. I mean, my coaching with me one-on-one is very expensive. How often do I have to advertise? Not very often at all. Reason being, I just show up. I show up with a frequency that says I'm going to be of service to the right number of people. Regardless of whether I make any money from doing this, I'm happy already. And that brings me in with a certain mindset, a certain energy, and a certain space that people are attracted to and want to work with. And as an entrepreneur, you can bring that into your experience as well.
That's interesting that you actually you made a comment about, as far as, people really just don't buy stuff just to buy it, just to have stuff. I mean, it's linked to a feeling, it's linked to an emotion, it's linked to something. And actually, I think I heard Dan Locke say that, it's like, don't just sell, a program, or, don't just sell whatever it is you're offering, and don't just sell, whatever it is, whether you're selling knives, vacuum cleaners, social media marketing services, or whatever. Don't just sell that. Try to attach to the promoter, the person that you're selling to. The reason why they want a particular goal or a task is because it's attached to an emotion. It's attached to a feeling that they have that they want, whether it's, just to, like you said, lay out in the sun, on a beach somewhere, or, it's not necessarily, just, oh, I want to get money, to grow my business. Of course, they're going to say that because they really don't know, but it's your job to figure out what their emotion is. And so if I was actually an entrepreneur coming to one of your events, and actually, let's just say I saw you, or, you were on stage somewhere and I came up, I was like, how can I get in touch with you? Or what is the purpose of me coming to one of your events? I mean, as me being an entrepreneur, whatever it is I'm doing, well, obviously I'm a social media marketing entrepreneur. I'm an affiliate marketer. I sell stuff online. How can what you have to offer or what you're selling, how can that help me? How would you sell me on your product or coming to your mastermind?
First and foremost, it will be about being the author and creator of your life, showing up every day, knowing that the outcomes that you receive at the end of the day are what you've consciously, deliberately chosen. A big part of what I talk about is something called navigating the divine matrix. This whole reality thing, being able to decide which direction you're going and being happy when you get there, being fulfilled when you get there, having meaning when you get there, as opposed to floating along on the river of life, blah, 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 blah. So even in terms of your entrepreneurial journey, allowing your entrepreneurial journey to be part of a bigger picture that supports you being the greatest version of yourself, being a happy version of yourself, and being someone that you like to look at when you look in the mirror. Not getting to the end of it in 20, 30, 45, 50 years' time and saying, crap, I've just wasted all of this time chasing things that I didn't even want. Actually stepping up to the plate now and saying, this is how I want to feel, choosing to feel that and being that every day. Now, doing that in abundance, I'm a firm believer in abundance. I said to you beginning, going back to nature, nature is abundant in nature. There's no shortfall in nature. The only time there's shortfalls in nature is when mankind comes in and it takes away. Nature is naturally abundant. So abundance is a natural state. Health is a natural state. Happiness is a natural state. Joy is a natural state. Working with me, what you're doing is you're calling these into your experience so that entrepreneurship becomes just part of a big adventure that you actually enjoy. One that's balanced, one that brings in the whole idea of relationship, one that brings in the whole idea of happiness, one that brings in the whole idea of abundance, and in a way that feels good. I'm not saying don't work 20 hours a day. I'm saying align yourself so that what you're working on for 20 hours a day is what makes you happy rather than stresses you out. One that adds to your joy rather than takes away from your health. one that's aligned with your principles, as opposed to creating a disconnect with your family and friends. Even down to your environment in terms of people, places, and things. What people, places, and things are in your environment? Are they supporting where you want to be at the end of the day? My book, The Dreamer's Manifesto, what this is all about really is, what do I want my life to look like? How do I want to connect with what I'm actually here to do? People talk about purpose a lot. I think there's a step before purpose. And that step before purpose is why I'm actually here. And every single one of us, actually, if we go to where we were as a child, we had things that we naturally gravitated to. We had things that naturally we were pulled to. Even if you ask yourself the question now, when you're supposed to be doing something, what do you procrastinate towards? That's telling as to what you're naturally inclined to. Now, if you start to bring more of that into your experience, how can you not have a happy life? How can you not have more joy in your experience? If you start connecting your entrepreneurial experience to that, how can it not be fun? And when things are more fun, they tend to work out better anyway, because we've got a better frequency, a better energy that we're bringing up to the plate. If you look at every single, pretty much most, I'm not going to say every single, most billionaires, the ones that we actually want to be around, not the ones we don't want to be around, they're doing something that makes them happy. They've got smiles on their faces. They're doing something that they get up every morning because they want to do that. Even when you look at people like Grant Cardone that talk about being 10x, you're going to be more effective at 10xing your experience when that 10x is spent doing something that actually makes you feel fulfilled. I'm not saying that there's not going to be contrast, there's not going to be obstacles, there's not going to be adversity, but you can traverse those more gracefully, right? And with more flow when you're going on a journey that actually makes you feel good and fulfilled. That's what I'm talking about.
And I guess, I don't know, I have several questions that I still want to ask you. Just based on what you said, I don't know if this interview is ever going to end. Different tangents and stuff. But I mean, I know you talked about just gravitating towards things when you were a little kid. And then you said, even when you procrastinate, doing stuff now, it's like, what do you, what do you lean towards, or what do you try to do? Mm-hmm. So I guess, even as far as little kids, I mean, I guess, how do you get in that mindset of doing that? Because most people, they don't think about that. They're just like, well, I just don't want to do this. And they really don't think about why they don't want to do it. And then they really don't think about, what they're going to do or what they did in place of, actually doing that. It kind of like you're saying, you just kind of exist. And then, I thought about a question of, people just don't question, why they do what they do. People don't really think anymore. They just pretty much, react. So, I mean, what is, I guess, one tactic or one, method that actually a person can actually start doing that? I mean, what's something that can jog our memory to be like, why am I procrastinating? To think about that question, because it's just like, well, I don't want to do this. And then you just go start doing something else instead of just stopping and thinking, why am I not doing that? How can we, get in a mindset of, doing stuff like that?
I would say, to be honest, I mean, this is a big part of what we're talking about on the Purpose-Driven Peak Performance Day, the mastermind on the 16th of June. And like I said, we've got a few seats for physically, but the live stream, I think the live stream is like $200 or something for the whole day. You don't get to have the breakout sessions with us, but you get to have the content. We're going to be talking about intuition. I've written a book on time mastery, which is shaving off 80% of your time and repurposing that so you can actually have 10x on your results while spending 20% less time and energy on actually doing it. That's one of the things I'm going to be talking about on the day. And a big part of it is this whole idea of the purpose-driven life. And going back to the code, see my slogan, Dream with Your Eyes Open. This is my brand. The Dreamer's Manifesto. I'm Dreamer CEO everywhere. And people think, oh, is he talking about having a big dream? Blah, blah, blah. Actually, what I'm talking about is when you close your eyes, where do you go to naturally, right? When you're unimpeded by the stories that we have consciously, where do you float back to? When you're a child and you're a kid, what did you naturally instinctively want to do? And this is a question I always ask of people, whether it's workshops or coaching or whatever. It's before you had the stories, before life told you who you should be, who did you want to be? That's your core code. That's what you came in to this body, to this experience already encoded with. As a child, did you want to play doctor? Did you want to be the boss? Did you want to be like a nurse? Like, what did you want to do? Did you want to go and play in nature? Did you want to be by yourself? Did you want to be with people? Did you want to help everyone? Going back to those experiences and even asking your parents or older siblings, aunties and uncles, when I was a kid, What did I naturally do? Go and look at your children's pictures. What birthday party did you always ask for when you were 2, 3, 4, 5 years old? Before the age of 7, what did you naturally gravitate towards? That will be very telling. And it's one of the things I talk about in my book, is the whole idea that be careful not to take it literally. What do I mean by that? There's some people that have followed this exercise I've just given you, spent 7 years in medical school and realized they don't want to be a doctor. Because it's not that they wanted to be a doctor, it's that they wanted to be of service and help and heal people. Actually, that fulfillment could have come from joining the Peace Corps. That fulfillment could have come from being a nurse as opposed to a doctor. It's just about being of service, right? But maybe other people's stories or the stories that we pull in from our environment gave us a different outlook on that. So what I encourage people to do is take this fact about what you pull up and actually feel into it. What part of the experience do we really want? For example, wanting to play toy soldier could be that you wanted to protect people. Maybe your thing is to be a father, not necessarily to be a soldier. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
There's more to it, and it requires you. I mean, intuition is great, and that's one of the people that's coming to join me on the day is my tantra coach. So we're talking about sexual alchemy, taking sexual energy and transforming that into energy to heal, to create, and to be a more effective performer. We're going to be talking about that at the mastermind. And also my intuition coach, actually using more than our 5 senses to experience the world and make choices. Learning to trust your gut and understand what that voice is. Feeding into that and using intuition, you can actually start to decipher from the bigger picture where your dream is. And when you start building on that, you have much more fulfilling, much more joyful, much more purpose-driven, and much more successful life.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I still got a few questions as far as obviously, man, you're a plethora of information that a lot of people aren't talking about. I mean, you might hear some of this stuff, if you go to church, go to, whatever your religion, some people, might, just pull little bits and pieces of this, kind of, sprinkle it on you a little bit. I know there's a meme out there with a guy, he's sprinkling a little dust on there, so, fairy dust or whatever it is, man. I don't know what it's supposed to be. I don't know if it's supposed to mean something. It came from a movie or what. But the situation is, where do you get your information from? What books do you read? What people do you follow? How did you acquire all this information? Because, this is some of the stuff that they need to teach us in school, but obviously, the education system is pretty much just archaic, and they just teach the same things over and over, the same history, the same, subjects, and they don't touch anything on this. No finance, no spiritual, none of that. They really don't want to. I guess I had a little bit of spiritual, but I went to a private school, Catholic school. So, growing up. But where do you get your information from? Who do you listen to? Who do you follow? How did you even get it? Because I guess you said your radio talk show host is actually a psychic. So how do you? You just don't go out and like, hey man, I want to partner with a psychic. It's like, how did you come in this realm? This just get in. This world.
Well, first and foremost, I invest in personal development. I spend a very healthy 5 figures a year. A very healthy 5 figures a year on personal development. I've got 2 performance coaches that I work with regularly. I've got my life coach. I see my Kundalini yoga teacher privately. I've got an energy worker I see every week privately. I've got my tantra teacher I see every week privately. I do my intuition work with Jess every week privately. That's just one angle. I have business coaching, years of business coaching privately, expensive, right? I go to workshops, retreats, and I spent about $5,000 last week going to an event where I got to learn from millionaires and billionaires. And that's on top of the fact that I've spent 15 to 16 years deeply in personal development. I did the maths on it. I've read over 500 books in that time, well over 500 books. I've spent hundreds of thousands on workshops, DVDs, courses, personal development. There's a lot that's accumulated to come and create this state of being I am in now. And it's time, like I said, 15 to 16 years of a lot of work. I've had personal teachers, I'm up at 3:45 every morning, my meditation, yoga, and spiritual practice daily. I put the work in. It's the long and short of it, My tool beyond intention is 11 years of pain, trauma, digging in, making mistakes, getting things wrong, and coming out on the other side and surviving. And that's what brings me together as a state of being now, that enables me to then take that information, digest it, and put it into formats so that when I'm dealing with the entrepreneur, I can feel into intuitively and give them what they need, right? When I'm working with people that are going through transition of whatever kind, whether it's a divorce or whether it's midlife crisis or whether it's retirement or moving into entrepreneurship from being in a career space, I'm taking a decade and a half of experience, a lot of books, DVDs, courses, film, workshops, retreats, events, and bringing that together with my very simple, predominantly 4-step formula beyond intention to put it in a package whereby it's not just information, but it's information that you can apply and get results from. Everything comes down to owning your ability to direct the outcomes in your life through what we choose moment to moment. And that's what I empower people to do. And who do I follow? I follow people that speak the truth. I mean, I don't really consume that much content on social media now. A lot of my social media content consumption time is now supporting people like yourself that are putting out good stuff, supporting and sharing your content, as opposed to following people to learn more stuff. I still read a book a week. Right now I'm reading, I'm using an audio book to get it done because it's one of the time management tools I use to make sure I meet my target. That's Be Here Now by Ram Dass. Very, very, very powerful man. But once you've read hundreds of books, you start to realize that the truth is really the same across all of them. And actually, you're really going to the book not to get a big chunk of truth, but to get those extra nuggets and round it off and add to your experience so that you keep learning, always be moving, ABM. I believe if you're not growing, you're dying, because that's what happens in nature. When nature stops growing, we die. And actually, when we die as humans, it's because the telomeres in our body stop growing. We just stop growing, and that's why we die. As long as we're growing, we're alive. It's when the growing stops that we actually die, we expire. Same with flowers. When we cut them off, they're automatically dying. Whereas when they're still on the bush, they're continuing to grow, right? So I continue to grow and expand, not because I necessarily need to know more key stuff. The core of what I need in order to live the life I want, I do now. I already live the life I want. I get to travel the world. I teach my work. I meet amazing people and have an amazing kick-ass life. I do that already. What I'm really doing is continue to grow and expand because things are always evolving. But truth is the core of the center is always going to be the same.
That's good. That's good. I know my wife, she made a couple of comments. She said she liked your comments about, moving through the divine matrix. And she says, she likes to read and eat. She said that's what she loves to do most, which, I read. I'm getting into, reading. I pretty much do all mine, pretty much online training and all that stuff. But she said, my eating coach.
One thing I want to encourage people to realize is that it doesn't matter if you're not a reader. The purpose of reading is to learn. You may read this book, you may listen to it, you may watch this interview. They may listen to it as an audio. They may go to a workshop. The important thing is the learning. It's not the medium. Obviously, different mediums hit different parts of the brain and trigger different neurons and circuits in the brain and what have you, so that you can expand your brain. But what's most important is that you learn. Just aim to learn one new thing every day, or even start with learning one new thing every week. And then when you get into a habit of learning something new every week, aim to learn 2 new things every week, then 3, 4, 5, and then start to learn a new thing every day and watch your world expand. And as your world expands, your ability to shop and make more money will expand because learners are earners. Because when you're learning more and expanding more, you're going to be ahead of what's going on around you. You're going to be more open to different possibilities, more different opportunities. If you're just keeping yourself in a bubble that's not expanding, especially with the way that we're in the information age right now, the way that information is expanding, the way that business is shifting, unless you're staying on top of that and expanding with it, you're going to be left behind.
That's true. That's true. And I know my wife says, let's see, it says my wife said we need to follow you, which I'm already doing, I guess. Great wisdom drop today. Thanks for sharing. This interview is my new favorite. So that's
Thank
good.
you very much.
Came on this new favorite. So that's a good thing. But then she also said, put in the work. Because I mean, a lot of people talk about it, it's like, man, I spent this much on, this program. I spent this much, I invested with this, I invested with this and, I really hadn't seen the results yet. I read this book or, I went to this training, went to this mastermind. I'm still not seeing the results yet. But you just heard what Dan said. I mean, you heard what he said. I mean, as far as, he said 15 years or more than 15 years,
15,
at least
15 years.
about 15 years or so, approximately 15 years. And you heard the money that he spent. Just last week, he just dropped 5 Gs, just on the, to go to an event. A 3-day event, 5 Gs. I mean, are you willing to do that? I mean, because obviously he's on here. He can speak for hours. I mean, we've already been talking almost an hour now because I know we started right on time because I mean, we've been talking almost actually over an hour now.
Yeah, we were talking before
we got on. So he can speak on these topics for hours. Can you do that? With your business, you need to think about, what you're investing in. I mean, what are you investing your money in? You going out, you going to the buffets, or you investing in, Rolex watches, investing in cars, investing in clothing. What are you investing your money? You investing in Netflix? I mean, and then and not to say any of those things are bad, but I mean, just like he said, you always got to be growing. You always got to be, moving. You always got to be, constantly. He said, you just heard him say, if you're not attached to something, the flower is not attached to the ground, it's not growing. Once you cut it off, it's dead. It begins to die. He says the only reason why we die is because we're not growing anymore. So what are you doing? What are you doing to grow on this day? Or are you just existing? If you're just existing, then you're dying. You're not growing. So I mean, I mean, you're pretty much living to die. Now, I kind of had a conversation about this yesterday with a guy at work. It's like, as far as, what are you living for? And I kind of, it's like, are you living to live or are you living to die? He was like, well, pretty much, I'm living to live. It's like, well, how do you know you're living to live? What are you doing each and every day to live? And, he loves going to the, gym. He loves working out. He loves doing stuff like that at the gym and everything like that. So, but I mean, if something, that's what he, really wants to do to make, him happy, then that's, because I mean, that's what happiness is about. Somebody just said, being successful is not about having, a ton of money. It's just being happy. If you're happy in the state where you are, that's pretty much a form of success. That's what I see. I mean, it's all about, like you were saying, the billionaires, because you were saying, because some people say that, people that have a ton of money, they're mean, they're arrogant and all that stuff. But you just heard him say, I mean, yeah, there's people with money like that. There's billionaires like that. But there's also billionaires, he said, with, a smile on your face. They're happy doing what they're doing. So, I mean, those are the people that you want to be around. Because just because you have money, just because you're a billionaire, doesn't mean that you are necessarily successful. Yeah, you have a lot of money. The world will look at you. Yeah, from the outside, you look successful. But you just heard him say that, he's pretty much taught the people, that are actually coming to him, pretty much saying, we got all this stuff. It looks good on the outside, but on the inside, they're empty. So that's what Dan can help you do. He can pretty much help you find, your fulfillment, the things that you wanted to do when you were smaller. So I mean, this is a good interview, interviews like this. Actually, I had another lady that was on here, and she was talking about, I guess, grieving and everything like that. That's her, her niche and her goal is she actually helps people, that are grieving. Somebody, just whether you lost a job, lost a loved one, just dealing with loss, just grieving. And that really wasn't a popular, interview. Not a lot of hits, not a lot of views or anything like that. And it's kind of hard, to do the copy and stuff like that. So it's like some of this stuff that, really deep, people really aren't, listening to. They only want surface stuff. So, it's just, because I guess right now, we're the microwave generation, as far as, we want everything. I know they said that in my generation too, but I still think it's even worse now. Because I mean, at least on my Facebook feed, you see people that are like, oh yeah, I just closed the deal for, $10,000, like a 15, 16-year-old little kid. It's like, I'm making $10,000 a month, just close the deal, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, and then everybody else is looking at that and it's like, oh man, I want that. But actually, I've interviewed some of those people, and they've actually sacrificed a lot to get to that point. They're not doing what other teenagers are doing, going out watching TV, going to parties and all this stuff. Yet you don't see that. I mean, everybody talks about, the iceberg mentality, where you only see what's on the surface. You don't see all the years that it took, to build up. Like right here, pretty much everything, every book that you read, every event that you went to, every training that you went to, every interview that you had, that you've been on, every person that you interviewed. The fact is, you've summed that up for us. I mean, you're just pretty much, you made it easy for us to understand everything that, you acquired over all these years. People don't see that. They just say, oh man, this man, he has it all together, just because he does this and this. He read all these books and all that stuff. It's not like that though, people. I mean, you got to understand the work that he put in. I mean, obviously, yeah. I mean, you just heard him say the amount of money that he spent on his training. So obviously, I'm thinking if he spent that much money, then obviously I'm pretty sure he's making at least 10 times that. Like, Grant Cardone, says make 10 times. And obviously, you don't have to share your income. But I mean, it's pretty much, I already know that you're making a ton of money, because I mean, if you're investing that much, I mean, it's just impossible, because I mean, that's a law too. I mean, whatever you get in, you're going to put out. You can't put in 1 + 1 and then get 18,000. You can't do that. I mean, it's an equation. It has to work. 1 + 1 is 2. So if you want 18,000, then you got to figure out something else to do on the other side of that equation to, equal the 18,000. So, I mean, this is a very, 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 very good interview. And I hope that Facebook does what it needs to do to push it out and to get it out.
I'm going to share it on mine as well. It's been an absolute pleasure having this opportunity to share. And like I said, I put a lot of free content out, and I encourage people to take the time to go and check that out. We've got the radio show, and I've got a lot of free videos on my page and YouTube. But what I would say is, no matter what they've taken away from this interview, what they take away from any of the videos, even if they join, I think I'm doing another 5-day challenge. I did my first 5-day challenge this month. It was really good fun. So the team are putting together another one. We're doing it in mid-April. Do one thing different. No matter what you take away from this interview, make one different choice, one new shift, one thing different. And if you do that, you will see a shift start to happen in your life. Tony Robbins says that if a plane takes off, and don't quote me on the cities, but the principle is still the same. If a plane takes off from London heading to Buenos Aires in Argentina, and it's just 2 degrees off, it can end up in New York. Small shifts, when committed to and followed through on, will produce seismic shifts in the results that you have in your life. Make one new choice off the back of this interview, one thing that has been said. Feel free to reach out and ask any questions of me. And like I said, there's people can come to my workshop or whatever, or come to a live stream. But at the end of the day, what's more important is that you just make one new choice. Do one thing differently. And that one thing, don't just do it today and go back to the old way of doing things. Stick to that new choice, and you will see a shift in your life over time. It's the law. It has to happen.
That's good. That's good. Let me get one more question. And usually I end with this question. So if you were to have one superpower, what would it be and why?
To see the future, and it's so that I can make the most effective choices in the now.
That's good. That's good. So I don't know. That's interesting though, because if you saw the future, I wonder if you still make that same choice, or is it, if you made the choice, would it change the future? That's what
There's a paradox with that. And one of the things I've been playing with is this whole idea of astral projection. One of the things I've been messing around with in my training with my psychic coach. And it's very interesting when you start to get into the paradoxes around that, and the reality that time is an illusion, that everything's really happening now. But yeah, off head, that's one thing that comes to me, something that maybe it's because we've been talking about choice today, but strength doesn't really interest me. Unlimited intelligence, maybe super speed, whatever. But being able to see the future and make effective choices in the now.
That's good. We'll end on that note, even though, it was a long, because actually I asked that question to a lot of people. Some people answer quick. Some people, that was actually the longest pause I had with that question. I was kind of I was like, do I need to say something, or, is he okay? Or, But yeah, that was the longest pause. But obviously, yeah, you were really thinking about it. I'm pretty sure you had a lot of stuff running through your head. It's like, if I do this, maybe this, or
Yeah,
not.
I did some maths on it. Yeah.
But yeah, my wife said, yeah, time is an illusion.
Yeah.
So yeah. But thanks for joining us, Dan. This is a very good interview. So gives a lot of people to think about. But just like Dan said, you can reach out to him. I put his website here. I pinned the comment on the top of here. I might change it around a little bit just to see, just to monitor the traffic that I'm actually sending to his website. But if just like Dan said, if you can change just one thing, take one thing away from the interview, and not even just this interview, just whatever you do each and every day. I heard somebody else say this, you can just change one thing, with your life, or, just try to rearrange one thing today. Just like you heard him say, man, he said, I'm not going to name the locations, but he said, as far as the plane, if you put a plane off to a certain destination, put it off to 1 degree, 2 degrees, it'll actually end up in a totally different location, totally different country. So, just try to change one thing in your life today that you did not do yesterday. Do it and just see what happens. So thanks, Dan, for joining us. And I don't know if you want to give people a reach out. I know we got your website. Anywhere else they can reach out? I know they can reach you on Facebook.
They can add me on Facebook or whatever. They can go to my page, which is my name. Like I said, we've got the 5-day challenge. But if you go on my page or add me on Facebook, you'll see what's really going on. There's a few retreats and workshops going on for now. For entrepreneurs, I really recommend, if you are in California and you can get to our mastermind, you will not regret it. And if you can't get there, get on the live stream. It's really reasonable. It's like a couple of $100 for the live stream or whatever. And yeah, just connect with me and let's talk. I do a free call as well. I love the puzzle of meeting new people and seeing what challenges they're having and how we can support them. Just let me know, really.
All right. Thanks so much, Dan, for joining us. And we will see you guys again. Check us out in the group. Check Dan out in his group. And remember, #ABM. Always be moving. Let's go.
Thank you.
All right.